All right. So today I'm here talking with Jim Hoggatt, the founder and CEO of ExecHQ. They are an advisory firm and have over 130 now highly experienced experts that are available on an as-needed basis to immediately impact strategic initiatives and generate results at a fraction of the cost of full-time executives. And I have to tell you, Jim, I've had the opportunity to meet with some of your partners over the last couple of months. And obviously they are incredibly knowledgeable in their fields of expertise. But the lasting impression that they had upon me was that these are great people, more than anything else that you're working with. And that's a rare combination.
Thanks, Mark. We're really proud of not only the team but the culture that we've developed. So, yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. So the reason I want to talk with you today is I've always believed that the person or the business with the most options wins. And obviously, one size never fits all, but every business is unique. It's kind of like a fingerprint. No two are exactly alike, and they have unique needs depending upon their initiatives and their time horizon. And your firm specifically is uniquely qualified and positioned to support these companies. And so I thought it'd make sense to talk about how ExecHQ partners with and supports businesses. But first, why don't we start off just with a little bit of background about you, Jim, first?
Yeah, thanks again, Mark. I appreciate the time. I've been in the business world for probably 30 or 40 years now. Originally started with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then for most of my career, I've either been a CEO of companies or a chief financial officer in companies. And for the past 5 years before I started ExecHQ, I was a senior partner at a CFO consulting firm that's based in Phoenix, and we had about 230 partners in the Phoenix area. And during that time, back in 2018, both my mom and my mother-in-law passed away within 6 weeks of each other. And both were Christian women, and they were ready to go. My mom had dementia for probably 6 or 7 years. But the interesting thing that happened, I needed obviously to focus on family and before the deaths and then afterwards. But for 2018, my revenues and profits that I earned for the firm were less than spectacular, you might say. And I really began to realize that in the business world, a lot of times firms are going to focus more on revenue and profits than their executives and their teams. So in February of 2019, I decided to retire from my previous firm, and my long-term goal was to create a firm where basically our executives and their families were our highest priority. And then secondly, obviously, the clients are a high priority. But since that time, we've grown, as you mentioned, up to where we have about 130 executives in North America today. And we have a small presence in Europe and Asia, and also in kind of penetrating other areas of the world at this point.
Okay. Let's talk about obstacles. I've always thought that for every obstacle, there's an equal or greater opportunity.
Right.
And this past year, there was plenty of obstacles. What was different about how you help support companies this past year, specifically through the pandemic?
Yeah, and it's a good question. Starting in about March of 2019, from that point till about December of 2019, our firm actually doubled in size in terms of the number of executives.
Wow.
But for most of March, April, and May, it was like the world was shut down, and nobody really kind of knew where to go from there. As things began to kind of get absorbed a little bit more, we began to see, some of our clients who needed us to help, to just stabilize cash flow, to help them, restructure in certain ways to enable them to make it cash flow wise through the process. But for some of our other clients who were kind of rich in the cash resources or had the ability to raise funds, for some of those, we were able to help them to go out and acquire some organizations who may have been undervalued during that period of time. For our executives, it was particularly tough. I would say, a great majority of them found it difficult to find new clients during that time period. And even though we were adding new executives, it was, a difficult time to find clients who were really ready for us to work with them. But, on the more personal side, a lot of our executives faced, family members who passed away or who were at a high risk. And it was good in a sense to be in an environment where we could tell them, hey, don't worry about it. Go take care of your families. Don't worry, about your revenues or profits as far as we're concerned, rather than being in a more kind of a traditional environment where you may, have to let people go because of things like that. So it was good to be able to try to support our team during the struggles. It seems like, though, especially in the last 2 or 3 months, there's a lot greater activity. We have strategic alliances with a number of companies, and we're beginning to see a fairly large uptick in the number of leads and opportunities for our people.
Yeah, I'm in that same belief system with you that family always comes first.
Right.
We absolutely saw that this past year. Let's talk about change, because we've seen a lot of change this past year. What changes to the business environment do you anticipate seeing as we emerge from this pandemic? I think we probably both agree that we're beginning to see the thaw, so to speak, and some of it's regionalized.
Right.
But how do you think business is going to change moving forward?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I stay fairly optimistic. I think a lot of really good lessons have been learned as a result of the pandemic, and not to kind of repeat this, but I really see a lot more employees and executives and CEOs who are valuing the time with their families more and having a greater urgency or a sense of urgency to develop a stable kind of family work balance, which is a good thing. Secondly, I think a number, and this is to be kind of played out, but a number of companies now realize they really don't need to have a full-time permanent executive sitting at the office, occupying a fancy office and desk. For the most part, most of the executives would be working out of the house, including the CEO and many of the members of the team. So it's really forced upon us in a good way the ability to work remotely in a much more effective environment. And then secondly, I think companies are looking for more help, especially over the last 9 months when they've lost key executives on their team, either due to the COVID or family risk issues or other issues. Now they're, needing more help. And if they can bring in people on a part-time basis that are highly skilled executives, they're relooking this, maybe a thought that you always have to bring in somebody full-time permanent with a long-term commitment.
Yeah. Let's talk about your clients. And I think I already know the answer to this, but I never like to assume anything. Is there a typical industry or client that you partner with? Do they have a footprint or a size? And what does that look like so that listeners will kind of know whether or not your services might be a fit for them?
Yeah, we don't compete with many of the large, firms like MacKenzie or PwC, very prominent consulting firms. A lot of our clients, they're going to range from startups up to 400 or 500 million in revenue. And the type of work that we can do will range from, interim, either CEO or chief financial officer work or chief marketing officer work. And I can name off 20 or 30 different C-suite titles, but we can help them on a part-time basis, on a project basis, on a full-time interim basis. So these clients are going to be a good blend of nonprofits, for-profits, family office, venture capital owned companies and private equity owned companies. And then we do a little bit of work for some government agencies as well. But again, generally they're going to be somewhere between startup and 500 million in revenue.
Got it. And what's the best way for somebody to connect with you, make an introduction if they have questions? What's the best way for them to reach out to ExecHQ?
Yeah, our website is exechq.com, or frankly, they could just email me. It's jim.hoggatt, HOGGATT @exechq.com. Or if you call our main number, which I can provide you, Mark, it's basically 480-447-2204. We have receptionists that actually answer the phone. So you get a live human being 7 days a week. But just feel free to call, and I'd be happy to talk and try to figure out how we can potentially help you.
Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate your time, Jim, and thank you for the opportunity to talk, and let's do it again.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks again for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.